Every day is a school day here at What Culture. I mean, partially because I just pissed about in regular school, but also, because wrestling is completely, absolutely, absurdly, permanently mental. As such, the stories you come across in this line of work are usually amazing, but most of them are pretty well known, have done the rounds for years, but every once in a while you just get one that makes you go, what? And there have been none stop me quite as dead in my tracks as the one that emerged on Reddit last week via a culture roast video. The unlikely tale of New Japan legend Antonio Inoki and how he secured the release of 41 hostages right before the start of the Gulf War. My name is Adam Cleary and this is the unbelievable tale of the wrestler versus Saddam Hussein. Alright, so to understand this story you must first understand Antonio Inoki. He's the guy who founded New Japan Pro Wrestling and over the course of his career would have wrestler, martial artist, businessman, entrepreneur, politician and all-round legend on his CV. The guy is not just a legend in Japanese wrestling, he's a legend in Japan full stop. In 1976 he had a mixed martial arts match with Muhammad Ali, yes really, then he went and headlined a 200,000 capacity wrestling show in North Korea, yes really, against Ric Flair, yes really. Nearly 30 years into his wrestling career though, having founded, worked for, promoted and subsequently sold New Japan Pro Wrestling, he decides to get into politics and founds his very own political party, the Sports and Peace Party. Now I could go into a lot of detail on this, but it's not exactly vital to the story. Basically, he just thought people should practice politics the same way they practice sport. That is to say, yes, you compete with one another, but you do so with honor and with mutual values and with a mutual respect at the same time. Obviously, never going to work in any country, but hey, that's what he wanted to do. Anyway, he was so popular in Japan, he was promptly elected to Japan's House of Councillors, which is a bit like sort of the Senate in America or the House of Lords in the UK. I should say as well, he's still an active wrestler at this point in his life. He doesn't retire from wrestling to get into politics. He just thought he could do them both, just like Kane. Anyway, during his first term in office, it's all starting to kick off a bit in Iraq because, well, I mean, you remember Saddam Hussein, don't you? Before his career-defining role in South Park, he was a political and military figure of some... Actually, I don't know why I'm sugarcoating this. He was f***ing crazy. One of Saddam's many genius military stratagems was to kidnap international visitors to Iraq and imprison them at important military locations. The logic being that foreign powers would then not attack these installations for fear of killing the hostages. What a lad, eh? Now, Inoki, learning that amongst these literal human shields was 140 Japanese citizens, decided he was going to do something about this. He put his hand in his own pocket, flew out to Iraq, met one of Saddam's sons, and, while unable to immediately secure any releases, did start a dialogue between Japan and Iraq, or specifically between himself and the Iraqi administration. That's important. Over the next few years, Inoki becomes a regular visitor to both Baghdad and wider Iraq. He converts to Islam, he meets Saddam a number of times, he does generally what he can to improve relations between the two countries. And it worked. Like, Inoki's initial bridge building between the two countries led to an actual constructive dialogue between the two governments. I mean, it took him out of the equation slightly. They started sending actual diplomats to do these things, but at a time when the rest of the world was taking a very hard line on Saddam, Japan-Iraqi relations improved to the extent where Saddam agreed to release around 100 of their hostages. I mean, that was huge, and Inoki, presumably absolutely buzzing at this revelation, decided he was going to do everything in his power to get the remaining 41 out of that country. Inoki's grand plan to do this was by holding what he called a peace festival. He basically chartered a massive flight, loaded it with all the families of the hostages as well as sports stars, musicians, famous martial artists, and about half of the New Japan Pro Wrestling roster, flew out to Iraq and decided to put on a huge festival designed to basically guilt Saddam into releasing the rest of the hostages. And on December the 3rd, 1990, New Japan Pro Wrestling's final Battle 90 was held in Baghdad, along with some live music and other performances. The families of the hostages were in the crowd, as were a number of prominent members of the Iraqi government. It was the most Inoki thing imaginable. The card on the night, just in case you're wondering, was Bad News Brown versus Masanobu Kurisu, Jushin Thunder Liger versus Kangaroo Hoshino, The Cuban Assassin versus Black Cat, and the main event of the evening was Masa Saito and Riki Koshu tagging against Horishi Hase and Kensuke Susaki. Not bad that, but in spite of all that, nothing happened. There was no message from Saddam, there was no word from the government, and on December the 4th, Inoki, the families, and everybody else headed to the airport with nothing to show for their peace festival. But at the 11th hour, in a twist wrestling itself would have been proud of, with everybody in the departure lounge about to leave for Japan, Inoki, the wrestlers, the performers, the families, everybody, Inoki was stopped at the gate by some of his hosts and told if he could just stay a few more days, Saddam's son would talk to him about the release of these hostages. So he did, and by special decree of Saddam Hussein himself, every single one of the Japanese hostages was allowed to leave. He did it, and a mere 6 weeks later, a massive international coalition led by the US launched Operation Desert Storm, which was a huge ground and air offensive designed to target Iraqi military installations, the same installations those Japanese hostages would have been in. And that is our story. It is no exaggeration whatsoever to say that Antonio Inoki saved the lives, literally saved the lives of those hostages. What a guy. The guy's incredible talent for diplomacy only blossomed from then on out. He melted the frosty relationship between Japan and North Korea sufficiently to get the aforementioned near 200,000 capacity wrestling show put on there, and he even offered to mediate talks with the Taliban, saying that if people want to fight, they should do it in a ring. What a guy! So yes, there you go, that's our little story. In any other walk of life, a tale simply too unbelievable to be true, but this is wrestling, so it's just something that happened. Let us know what you make of it in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and smash your face into the big old subscribe button. Until next time, my name has been Adam Cleary. I'll see you soon.